wartime wonders. How tough times created tasty dishes. Taco rice. Taco rice is a delicious dish that mixes Japanese and American styles. It was created in Okinawa, Japan. After World War II, Okinawa was under the U.S.'s military control for 27 years. Even today, many American soldiers are stationed on Okinawa. Over the years, they have brought American and Mexican food with them, which had a huge impact on Okinawa's dishes. One key introduction was the taco. Taco rice was born in Okinawa in 1984. Okinawans knew Americans loved tacos, but they wondered if the taco shell could fill their stomachs. So they used white steamed rice instead of a corn shell as the dish's base. They topped the dish with other common taco ingredients, such as spiced meat, lettuce, and tomatoes. This special dish soon became a popular comfort food for the American soldiers. Today, taco rice can be found all over Okinawa, including in various school cafeterias. The dish isn't just food, it's a story of Okinawa's past and present.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to English for You. I'm Mike.
And I'm Laura.
And we are back here today with our article looking at wartime foods. Foods created in times of trouble and war. Yesterday, we learned about Woolton pie, didn't we?
We
sounded
did.
very, very tasty. These wartime wonders were created in tough times. Woolton pie is from World War II, from England, when they didn't have a lot of meat at that time because the country was at war, obviously. So Lord Woolton was the Minister of Food, and he made a wonderful pie with lots of easy-to-find vegetables in it. The pie was still delicious and healthy and cheap, and a lot of people really enjoyed it, and it probably got a lot of families through that war without being too hungry. So now we're going to be having a look at another type of wartime food. This is a wartime food from Japan. It wasn't actually made during wartime. I think it came after the war,
Right.
but without the war, World War II, when America was fighting Japan, without that war, we wouldn't have the wonderful dish known today as taco rice.
Yummy.
So let's get into our article and find out more about this Okinawan specialty. Okay, taco rice. Yes, absolutely. It's in the title. If you know what a taco is, and you know what rice is, you can probably imagine what this dish would look like. It's easier to guess than certainly Woolton pie. Taco rice. It says taco rice is a delicious dish that mixes Japanese and American styles. It was created in Okinawa, Japan, not too far from Taiwan.
OK， 大家可能如果去 Google 看这个 taco rice 就觉得就是这个样子 taco rice。OK， 那这个是来自于哪里呢？就是 Okinawa， 也就是日本的冲绳。那当我们说 Okinawan 是什么呢？就是冲绳人啦，或是冲绳的什么什么。I'm getting hungry here.
Oh, yeah. After World War II, Okinawa was under the U.S. military's control for 27 years. That's quite a long time. Of course, during the war, you might know World War II, there was a big battle on Okinawa. Thousands of soldiers from both the Japanese and American sides died in that terrible battle. But after that, America stayed in control of this little island for a long time, for 27 years. This would be military control. So that tells us basically the U.S. Army was in charge of the island, right? They didn't have a government sent from Japan, from Tokyo. The local Okinawan Japanese people were not in charge. The U.S. military was in charge for a long time. Military means, having to do with fighting forces. So Army, Navy, Air Force, anything like that. If you're in that, you can say, I am in the military. I have a military career or something like that. For example, Vivian comes from a military family with both her parents and grandparents having served in the armed forces.
OK， 这里我们提到 military 这个形容词就是军事的。For example, the military training exercise lasted for hours under the scorching sun.
All right. So yes, Okinawa was under the U.S. military's control for a long time, 27 years. But that is not the situation now. Japanese people, Okinawan people are back in charge. They're the mayors and governors and leaders. They're the politicians who lead the island of Okinawa. But even today, the article says, so even now in 2024, many American soldiers are stationed on Okinawa. There are thousands of American soldiers there. Over the years, they have brought American and Mexican food with them, which had a huge impact on Okinawa's dishes. So Okinawan people are back in charge, but the culture of the island is still kind of a mix of American culture and Japanese culture.
Nice, okay. 注意哦，这里的 station 在这里是当作动词来用，指的是士兵派驻的这样的意思。而 impact, okay, 就是这个是个名词哦，就是影响啊、冲击的意思。所以 impact on something 就是对什么什么的影响或是冲击。而 Mexican 在这里当然是形容词啦，就是表示墨西哥的或是墨西哥人的什么什么。
All right, so of course the Americans came, they brought their sports with them. That's right, well, that's why baseball is so popular in Japan. They brought their foods. You can find pizza places and burger places on Okinawa, but they also brought some other foods from America. One key introduction was the taco, a kind of Mexican, or we might actually say Tex-Mex. Texas and Mexican kind of combination. Southern American food was the taco. And it says taco rice was born in Okinawa in 1984. Normally a taco from America or Mexico will not have rice. It will be meat inside a corn wrapper or a corn shell called a tortilla. But you wouldn't normally have rice. But of course, in Japan, lots of rice. So you combine these two, taco and rice from Japan, and you get taco rice. And it was born in Okinawa in 1984. Really? That's interesting. So an introduction is basically an occasion or a time or when something is put into use or brought to a place for the first time. Okay, so we're not talking about introducing people like at a party. We're talking about the introduction of a new technology. Remember when Taiwan experienced the introduction of Pokemon Go? And everyone kind of went Pokemon Go crazy for like a month or something. So that's when it was first used. It was first available. It was the first time people in a certain place got to experience or use or try or have a certain thing. The introduction of that technology or that machine or that game or whatever. For example, the introduction of the television changed how people got entertainment at home. You could watch things at home now.
Love it. Okay, introduction 这个名词就是引进。For example, the introduction of new technology revolutionized the way we communicate.
Now, Okinawans knew Americans loved tacos, a very popular American food. Okinawans knew that, so they knew Americans loved tacos. But they wondered if the taco shell could fill their stomachs. That's an interesting thing to wonder about. Remember also, the Americans on Okinawa are young soldiers. They probably eat a lot more than your average person, too. So they need extra food because they're always running around and training and stuff like that. So the local chefs, the local cooks, the Okinawans who are making food for the American soldiers, they had questions. They wondered if the taco shell would be enough or could fill their stomachs. To wonder is to ponder, to muse, to think about something and not really have an answer. And maybe the answer isn't that important. It's just kind of interesting to think about, kind of imagine what the answers could be, but it's not a super important question that you must have an answer for. Here's one you might wonder. I wonder who would win in a fight between Aquaman and Iron Man.
I think Iron Man.
Really? But what if it was underwater fight?
Oh, Aquaman.
See? Well, but Iron Man has that suit. Maybe it works underwater.
Maybe. Okay, I wonder.
See? That's why it's interesting to wonder about.
Wonder 其实就是对什么什么感到疑惑或是想知道的意思，它是一个动词哦。For example, I wonder what time the concert starts. Maybe we should check the tickets.
All right, so we're trying to make a food like a taco, but enough to fill the stomachs of all sorts of people, Okinawans and Americans. What did they do? So they used white steamed rice instead of a corn shell as the dish's base. So there you go. They got rid of that Mexican corn shell, that taco or tortilla. That would also be hard to find in Okinawa, right? I don't think they grow corn there. You'd have to bring them from America. That would cost a lot of money. But white steamed rice in Japan, in Okinawa? Oh, yeah, we got a lot of that. So that was an easy thing to replace it with. What is it to steam? Notice here we're not just saying white rice or rice. We're saying white steamed rice. Well, most rice is steamed in some kind of way. Basically, to steam something, we're talking about how you cook it. You cook it with steam. So you cook it with very hot sort of water vapor. You boil water and all that kind of smoky steam that comes off the top, you use that to cook something. So you're not cooking it with fire. You're not actually putting it in the water like you might boil your noodles. No, this is more like dumplings. If you go for xiaolongbao or something, they put them in those special baskets, right? And they put all that steam that shoots up through it and it cooks it very quickly. It's actually quite safe and healthy also, right? If you steam things, it doesn't, not so much fat and things like that. For example, it should take about 10 minutes to steam the fish and then we can eat. Yeah, steaming fish is a good idea. Steaming a burger, not a good idea.
No. Yeah. Okay, steam 是蒸煮的意思哦。不过文中我们提到的 steamed rice 其实呢是过去分词当形容词的用法，像是我们提到的蒸饺啦，这当然就是 steamed dumplings. I love those. Okay. 那 steam 当作动词的话，我们可以怎么用呢？ For example, she steamed the vegetables for dinner, creating a healthy side dish. 不过在刚刚的句子当中，我们其实还看到今天的文法哦。So let's take a look. 今天的 Language in Focus 要教大家的就是 instead versus instead of 这两个的用法。首先我们先来看到副词 instead， 它可以放在句首、句中或是句尾，表示取而代之的事或者是反而的意思。For example, Sarah planned to study at the library. Instead, she ended up spending the day at the coffee shop. 这个 Sarah 她原本是打算去图书馆读书，可是最后呢，她却在这个咖啡店、咖啡馆或是咖啡厅度过了一天。那第二个我们来认识一下，就是片语 instead of， 如果当作介系词用，表示并非而不是，那可以放在哪里呢？句首或是句中，注意哦，后面要接名词或者是动名词。所以像是课文呢，回到课文我们有看到 So they 指的当然是 Okinawans used white steamed rice instead of a corn shell as the dish's base. 那再照一个另外一个 instead of 的例子，我们可以这么说 Instead of buying lunch， 所以它后面接的是不要做的事哦。I brought leftovers from last night's dinner to work. 所以意思就是我今天上班是没有买午餐的，而是做了什么呢？带了昨晚的剩菜或者是剩饭哦。所以呢，其实我们基本上可以这样子整理，就是 instead 和 instead of 是可以互换的。那么如果要互换的话，要注意一下句型会变成这样子哦。如果你要说主词加动词，然后后面接 instead of， 后面要接名词或是 VING， 等于主词，然后加 not， 再加动词，然后句点 OK。Instead 就是开头把它放在句首 Instead 逗点，然后主词加动词，等于主词加 not 加动词，然后分号，然后 Instead 也就是放在句子中间哦，然后逗点，然后主词加动词。所以刚刚的句子哦，就是课文的句子，我们可以这样子的改写哦。They didn't use a corn shell as the dish's base. 然后句点 Instead, they used white steamed rice. 这个就是等于 They or Okinawans didn't use a corn shell as the dish's base. 那你可以用分号再接 Instead, they used white steamed rice.
Very, very interesting. And it says they topped the dish with other common taco ingredients such as spiced meat, lettuce, and tomatoes, just like you would find in a taco. That's why they're called common taco ingredients. Yeah, and the meat is generally spiced. If something is spiced, it means you've added spices to it. It could be hot and spicy. That is definitely true, and tacos often are. But you can also use spice just to mean we added some spices that are not hot. So if you add, rosemary or cumin or thyme or something, you could also describe it as spice. But often, when we think of spiced, we might be thinking of a little bit hot and spicy. For example, I had some really tasty spiced chicken at a Jamaican restaurant last night. Probably jerk chicken, that Jamaican spice mix called jerk.
Okay, now spice 其实就是加香料在什么什么哦。那一样的文中是过去分词当形容词的用法。不过 spice 平常我们可以当作动词或是名词来用都可以。那我们来看一下动词的用法要怎么用。He spiced the chicken with a blend of herbs and spices before grilling it to perfection.
Ooh, sounds delicious. Now, this special dish, again, we're talking about taco rice. This special dish soon became a popular comfort food for the American soldiers. They just loved it. If they couldn't be at home having a taco, they can at least have taco rice in Okinawa.
OK, 那这里呢，名词词组的 comfort food 就是抚慰人心的食物，就吃了就会觉得哇想到家乡的味道这样的感觉。
Today, taco rice can be found all over Okinawa, including in various school cafeterias. So it's not just soldiers, local people eat it, tourists eat it. I had some when I was in Okinawa, and apparently kids like it because it's served in school cafeterias. I think that would be a popular dish. What is a cafeteria? This is kind of a serve-yourself style of dining. You're probably not sitting at a table and having a waiter take your order. It's more like a buffet, but you go over. You won't serve yourself, but you might point at things. Someone gives you the food when you get your lunchbox or your biendang here in Taiwan. Often you do that. You pick one type of meat, 2 or 3 types of vegetables. You don't actually touch the food. They put it on your plate, and then you sit down, and you eat it. A very efficient and fast way of feeding lots of people. That's why we often find cafeterias in hospitals, big schools, colleges, universities, and in the army. For example, in the hospital's cafeteria, doctors, nurses, visitors, and some patients all eat together.
Cafeteria 大家应该都知道，学校都有这个就是自助餐厅，尤其是在美式的，我常常以前小时候都很喜欢吃自助餐厅的食物，它是一个名词哦。For example, I grabbed a quick lunch at the cafeteria during my break.
That's a very fast way of getting your meal, too. Back to taco rice, the dish isn't just food, it's a story of Okinawa's past and present, and it's also really tasty.
不想错过更多精彩的 English for You 内容，就快点点阅我们的 YouTube 频道和追踪 Facebook 吧。
All right, guys, so taco rice was a great comfort food for homesick American soldiers. Imagine you're away from home. What food would you miss the most and why?
I would miss my mom's homemade beef noodles and 卤肉饭 because it's comfort food for me,
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
And no restaurant version can compare to hers. So yeah, when I was studying in Australia, I couldn't find anything like it.
Oh, no.
And it reminded me of home and family gatherings.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Mom's cooking is always something you'd miss. And, of course, food from your hometown or your home country that you just can't get in other places, or you can get it, but just doesn't taste the same. So have a chat about that. I'm sure there's lots of foods you might miss if you're away from home. We're going to be back tomorrow with more wartime foods that are still tasty today. Vocabulary Review.
Military. The soldiers will be sent to a military base on Kinmen Island for army training. Introduction. Thanks to the introduction of the new subway system, people are able to easily travel around the city. Wonder. Sally saw a shoe on the top of a roof and wondered how it had gotten there. Steam. Yolanda steamed some dumplings in the bamboo basket that she had placed in her cooking pot. Spice. For a delicious barbecue, We like to spice our meat before we cook it. Cafeteria. Candy doesn't like the school's cafeteria much because it doesn't offer many food choices.
智慧小补帖
Impact.